Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the first in the series of the ESG live cast webinars. We would try to keep this discussion as interactive as possible. Just give us one more minute till we have more of the participants coming on board while our respected speakers are here as well. We'll just like to use the chat button and see if everybody can hear me okay. So if you can please make your introductions, those of you who are joining us, just say hello, hi, who you are, where are you joining us from, what is your organization, so that we could kick off the discussions. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. I can see Sophia is here. I can see Hassan. I can see Imran and Imran Afzal. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for taking our time. Thank you, Sophia. Good to see you again. You were there in the first session as well. So welcome. Yes, absolutely, Sophia. I remember you from the previous session as well. All righty. Welcome to the first livecast webinar. We did the orientation a couple of weeks ago, and this time we're bringing in a very pertinent topic with all of the discussions that's been taking place in the ESG domain. We thought we'll kick off the first one and focus it on the IT and the telecom industry. What is the current trends in which they are working on carbon reduction and investing also in green tech energy? We are really honored to have a stellar presentations from our respected speakers here, but we like you as attendees who would be watching, who are on the Zoom call right now or will be watching us later, once this goes up on our social media channels. Just make sure that we interact, we ask questions. If you have any conversation pieces that you would want to share with our speakers, feel free to do so. This particular ESG is it's a collaboration between various different bodies. You could see the logos right at the back of our speakers, and you can then tell who are they from. But the Brown Network is hosting it in partnership with all other collaborators, which I'll be mentioning towards the end. Let me first introduce the speakers to us. We have Mr. Jawwad Hafeez, who's the director with Universal Service Fund Pakistan. And USF, as you all know, is working on empowering communities through innovative digital services. They've been working for the last many decades in Pakistan, working at the grassroots level as well. We have Dr. Mehwish Ramzan with us, who's the head of ESG with Jazz, and Jazz, as you know, is working quite aggressively in the fields of tackling climate change and with the sustainability practices under the corporate governance side of things. So that's Mehwish. And then we have Mr. Nauman Khalid, who's an expert in carbon accounting, GHG emissions, ESG, and he's also one of our collaborators. Nauman, Jawad Saab, and Mehwish, good to see you all.
Yeah,
We'll
thanks
just
very much.
We'll just start off the discussion with the speakers. I know, Jawad Saab, that you have set up a presentation which I like to appear up now. So if the team can share it. But there's a lot of talk around ESG. We all know that COP29 is right around the corner. And every day in different settings, we look at the different discussion pieces that would come up as part of, the conversations that are going to take place. We are doing the sector specific webinar specifically because then we have attendees also come in and reflect on their practices. And one common theme that we have seen in our previous webinars, and also I think the conversation going forward is also going to be around the same fact, that the companies that are actually the trailblazers, I would like to say, in the areas of, let's say, sustainability reporting, or the ones who are actually looking at ways in which they could better the carbon footprint. They are setting the stone. And then there are other companies that are actually supposed to follow in their footsteps, right? But they need that extra nudge. They need actually that first thread or the first step that they need to pick up. Where should they be starting off from? In our last session as well, we had a sit down in which a lot of best practices were shared, and I think that as we progress through this hour, we're going to see more best practices come in from the telco sector, and what are some of the triggers, what are some of the challenges also when it comes to looking at the regulatory part of the entire process as well, and where we are in terms of voluntary reporting mechanism in the country, what is in it for the companies for the longer future financial gain and growth as well, and whether we can align the two things together. So, Jawad Saab, I see that the presentation is put up. So I'll put you on the spotlight, sir, and we'd like to hear through and see what is it that the USF is doing under this particular sector, and then we'll go from there. Participants, feel free to put into the chat box if you have any questions, comments, or queries that come along the way. Ji, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. The slides, if you can move to the next slide, which is, yeah, so this is the first part of the presentation is about ESG as a strategic imperative for IT companies. So it looks like that ESG is about, say, for example, climate and social and governance, and the IT companies earn from technology. So how the two are connected. So there is a strong connection, and that we can quickly go through. And so please, next slide, please. So the ESG itself, I think we already had a previous session whereby we discussed what ESG is, what are the important components in it, the environmental, social, and governance parts in it. So we had already discussed this in one of the previous sessions, right, Shafat? That is how it is. So I think the audience is already aware of that. If they are not, so I will.
Yes.
Yeah. So we can skip it. Right. Thank you. So now, so it's a strategic imperative for the IT companies. So let's connect the two things together. The first part is like the design and use of IT software can be tailored in such a way that it uses low power, and that is what is going on right now. Most of the data centers where all of these are where all the cloud things happen, where the cloud platforms are running, they are being made in such a way that they don't use flood cooling. They cool only the cabinets where the equipment is. So in simple words, it's targeted cooling. And also we are moving forward with, instead of using heavy server hardware, which requires a lot of cooling energy, we are moving towards better, more efficient systems. So for the IT companies, it's imperative that they start to design and accept and migrate and adopt equipment that is low on energy. So the equipment would consist of the server hardware and also the network, which are the joining components of the cloud services, of the cloud components, and also the software, which should be more efficient. We know, like, if the cell phone we had been using it, if we use it too much, it loses battery very quickly, right? So if the servers are used on full load, they will use a lot of energy. So 20-30% saving in terms of carbon credit, in terms of, say, kilowatt hours, which is a unit of electricity, can be made uh, if we choose better low power hardware. So from that perspective, energy is directly proportional to money, that is the bills, and also to the carbon content that we generate. So by reducing that, we would actually be running greener. And the social and governance part of this is that the companies or IT companies have to invest into HR processes and governance. So at this stage, I would request Mehwish to please comment on this part. This is her expertise. Uh, how do IT companies are improving on the social and governance part? What sort of tools are they using, and why it is so important for the companies? Yeah, please, Mehwish.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Jawad Saab. You have given
Thank
a
you.
great introduction of this whole strategic imperative for IT company. And I also like to highlight that it also includes like telcos, and from the telcos perspective, It's more about investors' confidence, customers' expectations, and social responsibility as a corporate citizen. And in this regard, when it comes to, you have explained you can say, the environment component, which is more about emission reduction and
Emission,
energy efficiency and conservation. I would like to also add the waste reduction component, because being an IT company and being a telco, Jazz is having like huge footprint in terms of e-waste, which is based on the battery cells. So that is one thing, that incorporating the waste reduction and circular economy is very imperative for ITs or telco companies. And in addition to this social and governance part, because we follow the global system for mobile communication, which is known as GSMA, KPIs for incorporating the ESG in our business strategy. So it includes digital inclusion and digital integrity in supply chain. So if I further break down the digital inclusion, it includes the network coverage, then affordability and digital skills, that is enabling the population to use the devices, digital devices. Then in digital integrity, we further like divide that into data protection, digital rights, and online safety. For supply chains, we are focused on, you can say, the sustainable or kind of procurement from those supply chains who are environment friendly and they are using sustainable products to provide the services. So for social and governance, this is the perspective from the telco side. And for governance, we are also emphasizing the business conduct, that how we are operating as a company and what are the good business practices that we can adopt to govern in a business industry.
Okay, thank you, Mehwish. And yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. So when we talk about like we have to for the IT companies, ESG is imperative. So the E part, which is the environment, that indirectly saves on emissions on one side, which is the social, I would say, the ethical part of it, and but at the same time it saves electricity, energy costs. So that is a direct benefit to the IT companies. But then comes the governance part and the social part. Social part is that the benefits should reach the endpoints, should the customers, subscribers, who are the end users, and also the people who work for the company. And the governance is like transparency, the processes for the procurement, for hiring, promotions, reward, etc. All of them are properly managed. So these last two parts, the social and the management part, they create a value for the company when it comes to whether the company is evaluated by investors for investment or when people buy products from these companies. So this slide 5 actually points out, like, for greener solutions, lower energy is one benefit, but then the regulatory compliances that are now being put in continuously, because we have one planet, we have no other place to go, and we have to save it. So those compliances are coming in every certain time. So the regulatory compliances for the bigger companies, they can only achieve it if they are compliant with ESG, because the two are parallel concepts. And then the market and the customer expectations are that if it's a greener solution, we'll go for that. If it's a zero waste or low waste solution, it's a circular industry that is using its own waste, we'll go for those products. It's a general awareness that is coming in. Then the talent is attracted to companies that are transparent, where the value for the staff, for the human resource is there, where they are rewarded as per their capabilities, and there is nothing hidden. So that is the governance part. If it is, so the IT companies, if they embrace governance, they will attract better talent, more talented people. And then long-term value creation is the company over the year becomes a brand because of these high values, which are actually also covered in ESG. So when we cover ESG, it also covers the rest of the components. And then the value, the reporting makes it very, very transparent for the investors, and most of the companies are now public. So it also creates a confidence for those for people want to invest in that. And then I will request Nauman to please comment on the carbon content, how important that part is, and if the data centers and rest of the infrastructure of the companies, which is humongous. Like we have 35,000 BTS sites in Pakistan. These sites in the rest of the countries are in hundreds of thousands in bigger countries. So with all those sites using some sort of electricity, it becomes a huge carbon generating sort of a unit if you don't use alternate energy. So please, someone, if you could comment and emphasize on that part, please.
Yeah, yes, Jawwad sir, thank you very much for
Welcome.
your brief. I'd suggest that we have to see with the window of having a dual side mirror to it, to the carbon offsets. Whatever the carbon footprint is, the responsible part of the any business, not just the IT, any businesses, they need to go to the carbon offsets as well. So that is where carbon credits come in. When we are having a larger size of carbon footprint, it is directly proportional to just then going into greener practices. You should know what's your footprint, your scope 1, your scope 3, and scope 2 as well. Those are direct, but indirect ones are scope 3. The more detailed about the scope 3 emissions are, the GHG set of scope 3 emissions, that's going to be, I divulge that into my slides a little later. But once the carbon emissions are known, because most of the people should know, obviously everybody's from this industry here, carbon emissions don't get out of the atmosphere for ages. So once they get into the atmosphere, it's going to take them centuries to go out of the system. And so here we have to be, if it's in the lower atmosphere, we have to be careful, like having greener environments, protecting the environment. In Pakistan, a lot of people I've seen saying about the carbon, we don't have the carbon footprint that much. Obviously, that's true. But what about the deforestation, what we're doing in the northern part of Pakistan? So it's impacting us directly or indirectly. We are not having the footprint larger because of not having the industrial complexes that big, but we are cutting down the forests or the environment. You must have noticed a little bit of scandal in the northern part of Islamabad. There was a hotel shut down because we found out that those places are into the diverse nature of safety and everything. So these things have to be put in considerations of carbon credits. Carbon emissions are not just what we do, but how we live. So that's pretty much from it. I'd go a little deeper into this slightly. And on the governance part, it was very interesting. I'd suggest that, in Pakistan, we are, plagued with the bribery and corruption. That's one of the parts. Tax transparency, business ethics and values. So all these things come into the governance part. What's the pay difference between the executive and the employee? What are the accounting standards? How is our cybersecurity? Is our, IT companies and our cybersecurity, is that safe or no? So all those things come into the governance part of things. So these can be, like later on, we are planning a new session for totally going into this subject. So probably down the line in our later subjects as well, we would like to go into details of these things as well.
Thank you, Nauman. Thank you so much. Sure. Please, the next slide. Yeah, so the message here is that ESG shapes investment decisions. We already discussed that. And so anyone who wants to invest in Pakistan, like we have investments in Jazz, in Zong, in rest of the telecom companies, and then we have investments in the other industries that we have, medium tech, the startups that we have. So then actually ESG will shape those investment decisions. They will consider it for evaluating how serious a company is. Yeah, next, please. So the next is a discussion of what we already had. This is about the ESG framework. That framework ensures that the components of ESG are well addressed in an organization. So we had a previous discussion. I'll quickly skim this. Yeah. So anyone who hasn't gone through it, the slide is self-explanatory, so they can go through the details and can have understand it quickly. Yeah, next, please. So here comes the benefits, and these are some statistical values. So the survey shows that ESG makes comparison companies attractive for investors. and customers. And investment is very important, because if we don't have investments, we need foreign direct investment, FDIs. So from that perspective, we have to have organizations that are as good, as well governed, socially as apt as the Western standards are. So one of the studies says that 54% of the 2,820 individual investors that they surveyed, Morgan Stanley carried out its survey in 2023, they wanted to invest more into sustainable investments during the next 12 months. That sort of shows the direction in which the bigger investors are looking at. And then there's another, like 46% of the people said that they would buy sustainable products that have a reduced climate impact. That is a general trend on the public side. So the buyers are thinking like that, and the investors are thinking like that. Yeah, next, please. So our first section, that was about ESG as a strategic imperative for IT companies. We have sufficiently explained the concept, how ICT companies should adapt ESG. And the next is some of the government initiatives that sometimes are not that highlighted. And this is a section that we will quickly go through, but we'll look at all the initiatives, important initiatives that the government has taken place. So next slide, please. And then we can also request Nauman and Mehwish to, after these slides, the government part, you can dwell on what the private sector is doing in that. For example, Jazz and other companies, what are they doing for that? Yeah, so it's number 2, please. Government initiatives driving sustainable ICT. Should be slide number 9. Yeah, you'll have to go back. Yeah, these are the government initiatives. So yeah, prior to that, previous slide. We'll skim it quickly. Yeah, this one. So we'll quickly go through it. The slides I've made are quite self-explanatory. One is a green ICT initiative, which is actually the government is now promoting like the energy storage as a service. They've already started working on it. And it's a collaboration between Brilliance Group, Telenor Pakistan, and the Ministry of Climate Change. The project aims to reduce emissions by 58.3 kilotons, reduction comparable to planting 2 million trees. So it would be like sort of a energy storage as a service, whereby the energy produced by alternate means like solar and wind could be stored into, say, batteries, and could be used at other times, and people can come in, and big companies can invest into it and can sell that stored energy at a cheaper price. E.co Pakistan is doing Green Towers initiative, which uses solar power to operate telecom towers. And we'll go through a case study. This is a success story later on that will further explain the concept. Then on the digital vision, Digital Pakistan vision, this covers the ESG topics like the governance and the social part, whereby the benefits, the training, the technical know-how is being imparted to the youth. So that was launched in 2019. The Digital Pakistan vision aims to transform Pakistan into a knowledge-based economy. And for that, training program, partnerships. The recent one that is not mentioned here is a detailed training program with Huawei, who's going to train the youth and provide technical expertise in different subjects like AI, machine learning, the algorithms, programming, and some other subjects as well. And that is that is an initiative of the government with the Chinese government, and Huawei would the partner in it. And the government is trying is trying hard to bridge the digital divide, which is by using programs like USF. We'll also dwell into that more, which is connecting the unconnected. And actually that connectivity is an equivalent service as is provided in the metro. Like here we have the popular 4G and the LTE services. So we want to have the same services to the people who live in underprivileged rural areas. And the MIT has a draft for a new digital policy in 2014, which provides emerging technologies, disruptive technologies. So taking into account AI and blockchain and other such technologies which have a greater capacity of impacting how we work, how our jobs are defined, and how the future will be. Next slide, please. So then there's a handbook on climate risk screening for policy planning. Yeah, that was we discussed that earlier with Mehwish. So this is a book this is a handbook that is published. So it looks at the policy planning. It is for the planning people, issued by the government, so that if there are risks in a certain place, certain area, uh, because of the climate change that we have already caused. So we are going through a climate change. We should accept that because of the floods that we see, because of the excessive rains that we receive, and on the other side, the droughts that we get. So it is a book that we all, it's like generally referred to as a handbook, but it has different sections whereby every company that works in the field and is impacted by the climate, the changed climate, has to identify it. So it's a risk assessment so that we can put some money on one side so that those risks could be mitigated. And then is the startup ecosystem. It's like funding the startups, mostly which are related to environment, green energy, alternate energy, and maybe the accounting of it, and maybe some sort of a work that Nauman is doing, like doing the carbon credits for other companies, assessing them, and creating softwares that support those lines. So that is something where the government is putting more money, making it easier for companies and startups to start their ecosystem and get funding for that. The program encourages innovative solutions for climate challenges. And the last slide that we have is about ESG task force and initiatives. So we had, like, it's good to know. I found it today. Like, so Dr. Shamshad Akhtar, who's the former governor of State Bank, the ESG task force was created under his leadership. And the Pakistan Stock Exchange is a member of that, and Pakistan Institute of Corporate Governance. They had an MOU, and then they started implementing it. The initiative was supported by KPMG, who provided technical support, and the different softwares, the frameworks, and rest of the guidelines that are required to implement ESG. So that technical support was provided by KPMG. And the idea is that SECP, the Security Exchange Commission of Pakistan, the commission that actually controls all the companies that are set up in Pakistan. So through them, they would implement ESG in different companies, would support them, would provide them technical support for the implementation part. Yeah, please. Next. So now comes an interesting topic because I'm from the technical background. So this is like harnessing technology for the environmental sustainability, which is cloud, AI, and IoT. So these are the main components which can be used to harness, to take the path towards sustainability. And we can harness technology, which is cloud, AI, and IoT, and use it for better information, prediction, and most important, recommendation. So we can have recommender systems which guide us in the next steps, how to save the climate, how to reduce carbon, greenhouse gases emissions, and in those steps. So next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. So the components of this ecosystem, these are explained in a sequence, starting from say, if we are very aware of the cloud platforms. So the modern technologies, including the cloud platform and services, we to a certain extent use it, and we know it. Like most of our softwares are now online. We use them on cloud, like the email softwares and others. We have the storage, which is on cloud, and now we are using different computer-aided design softwares that are online as well. So we know that the cloud itself will go through a quick explanation of what it is. And then is how we reach the cloud. We require the telecom network. And there we have people like companies like Jazz, Telenor, Zong, PDCL, and others here in Pakistan. The rest of the countries, they have their own telecom companies that provide the highways and the super highways for the people to connect to the cloud. And the last part is, now we have the cloud, which is at the center. We have the pathways, the highways from which we can connect. But how we take the data, how we collect data from the remote areas, from different objects, from things, and take it to the cloud. So for that, we use IoT. So IoT means Internet of Things. Very simple idea. Things don't have any internet connected to them, the previous things, but they do have a lot of information in them. So if we could somehow connect those things with the internet, uh, we can collect all the information and we can send it to the cloud. So the concept is simple that, well, in this slide, if you could look at the fancy pictures there, everything is connected to the internet and has something to tell the internet, to tell the cloud. Some could send temperature, the other could send humidity, the other could send like precipitation, wind direction, wind flow, and so many other things. We already use such applications like the crowd who is traveling sends information of a traffic jam because they are not moving. That goes to Google. And the Google Map updates wherever there is a congestion, putting in a red line. So this is one such application that we do use every day. But the Internet of Things would take the things to the internet, like the agriculture and rest of the things. So the next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. So here is an end-to-end architecture. On one side, from the remote side, we have the Internet of Things, which is a device, or could be many, many devices that collect temperature, humidity, precipitation, water, total dissolved solvent, which is TDS. It's a very important sensor that gives you a basic idea of how much, what is the quality of water. It's a KPI, not the exact measurement, but a KPI, very important one. And then the suspended particle in air, where we are already facing excessive pollution in Lahore, and now it has come to Islamabad and Peshawar as well. So we have haze and we have bad days when, so we know when the pollutants are very high there. Then the wind direction and flow and geosensors. Geosensors are used for identifying disasters whereby there's a movement, if there is a landslide coming in, if there are other problems that happen. So these Internet of Things are like sort of all the senses, like the human senses that we have. They collect all the information. They use the data communication, and there are some names given. You can go through them. One of them is the narrowband IoT. I will simply skim them. Narrowband IoT, let's call it NB-IoT. It's important because LTE and the modern network support that. So it's going to be big in the near future. The 5G supports it. So we'll have sensors at home that will tell us like the plant is hungry, the plant is dry, or it could be a whole garden that would tell us, and things like that could happen as well. So, and then there are other protocols, Sigfox, LoRa for the technical people. There are other sort of protocols that are supported, but the base idea is that they allow you to transport data, not information, data from the sensors to the cloud. And then we have the cloud, where the cloud itself is a distributed, scalable, fault-tolerant, secure, okay, difficult jargon, but it's a very, very reliable friend. So it has all the capacity to become large, to shrink, to heal itself, to protect all the information that is there. So that is a cloud part. And at the same time, it has a capacity to run application exactly the same way like we run applications on our laptops. So we can run applications there. When these three components are there, then we need the application. The application is the artificial intelligence apps that we have. So AI is just like a replica of the human beings, not that intelligent. Maybe I would say 10 to 12 years by now. Previously, it was a boy, a child of 4 years. Now it has grown up to, say, for example, 12 years. Then there are some AI models. It's a very good idea, like the large language model that we have, which runs ChatGPT, which ChatGPT uses, not runs it. And now the Copilot and others use it. That language model is a pre-trained model. We have climate pre-trained model, which means like we don't have a novice that we'll have to train. We'll have a pre-trained AI application which knows what it is doing. With those applications, Nauman is already doing a lot of assessment work, a lot of prediction work. We already do that. So with these components there, we have an end-to-end architecture that supports all our predictions, reporting, and recommendations. Yeah, next slide, please. So now, once we have grounded ourselves with the idea of IoTs, the highways, the cloud, and the AI apps, so now we can quickly skim through that so that more time is
Just on the subject of Jawwad Sahab, AI, and just
Yeah.
I'd like to tap in on there is
Yeah,
another
sure,
subject. There is another subject in this automation which is called robotic process automation.
Yeah.
So there are two ways of we're dealing with these things. So robotic process automation is basically the muscle, and AI is basically the brain.
Yeah.
So just to educate the listeners here, so what
Yeah.
the robotic process automation does is you put the AI on top of the robotic process automation, which is created by asking the client or asking the company or whoever is creating a solution. They create certain rules, and then this AI judges those rules and make decisions on top of that. So these are the two very main things. And Oracle right now, just an upgrade, maybe last month, everybody must have known that Oracle has gone fully AI versus RPA. So this is, and they've become the second largest corporation in the world because of just that. So this is just this is just the information I wanted to share.
Yeah, yeah.
Please continue.
Okay, thank you. So here it's the first component, Internet of Things, is explained. We already have gone through it. So these slides should be a reference for future. We can move to the next slide. So the first is Internet of Things. Yeah, so here we have the cloud, and we can go like software as a service, storage as a service. So everything is a service. We don't have to carry anything. We just need to have a device that connects to the cloud, and we already have that. That's our cell phone or a tablet. That's what we have, and we have communicated all the things. So as Nauman said, more and more corporations are going utilizing AI, and they are leveraging on AI, expanding their business and expanding their intellect, I would say, or intelligence. So with the help of cloud computing, we can do lots of useful work on the climate side as well. So next slide, please. So here we have the AI, which is a very simple definition given a branch of computer science that uses computational models to perform tasks. Yeah, that's it. Okay, we'll not go into the
Machine
details.
learning.
Yeah, one of the applications or one of the applications of AI is machine learning. Another would be large language models, and others as well, the deep learning, and etc. So you see that we have just mentioned them. AI offers data analytics. This is the most important part. That is the data sciences is the most important outcome of AI. It actually does things like what humans do, which previously wasn't possible. So it can recognize things, it can match patterns, and at the same time, it can process lots and lots of data. The data storage these days is not the ones that we had previously. The data stores are such that they can store data, and the data can be searched by using one component. Like it can be searched in any part. For example, it could be like Nauman's name and his qualification, education, and then his sports activities. He's a very good badminton player, for example. So from badminton, we can search Nauman. And from Nauman, we can search education. And from education, we can search badminton. So exactly, it is unstructured. We call it the NoSQL. So that becomes together makes big data. And then with big data, we can do parallel searches and parallel processing, which has made AI possible. AI and the algorithms that are initially used in AI are the statistical algorithms that we used to study in the 90s as well, but they were not practically doable. Now with all the data, it's doable. Initially, the data wasn't there. Then the data was there. We couldn't crunch it. We couldn't process it so quickly. Now we have all the things. So that's why AI has become so powerful and popular these days, because it is doable now. So here is the advantage. And if we go through the next slide, please. The advantage is that its analytical capabilities are endless, and its learning capabilities. You keep on it keeps on learning, and it improves with learning, and it like graduates like the way we graduate. We are 12th grader, and then we are 16 credit, and when you do the master's. So far, it will take some time to reach the master's level, but it's still going on. It provides revolutionary solutions for enhancing environmental sustainability that I would want to dwell on by leveraging technologies like machine learning and remote sensing. Remote sensing is used by satellite imagery, and previously, without machine learning and without AI, that wasn't that effective. But now it has become very effective because machine learning uses other information as well. It takes a satellite image, but it knows more about the area as well, that this satellite image belongs to, for example, Pakistan. So it knows what is the general trend of weather and climate and rainfall in Pakistan. So it correlates all of that. And the more and more data it correlates, the more accurate the results are. So with collaborative efforts of researchers, policymakers, and practitioners, we need all of these people here. We need researchers to give us good algorithms, but the methods that solve our problems. But we need policymakers who transform that, convert that into doable things, and then we have practitioners. So this is the last slide for this topic. And now here is a topic where I can take a break, which is resources and tools for ESG integration in IT. And here Mehwish is the expert for the subject because she's already leading Jazz ESG department, and she's been doing and using these tools. And after that, we have another topic that is the actual benefits that we obtain by converting, say, 2000 something telecom sites on alternate energy. And there, I'll take the technical part, and then Nauman will explain the credits and the benefits that have been achieved. So I will request Mehwish to please take this up from this slide onward. Yeah, please, Mehwish.
Yes. Jawad Saab, thank you so much. So as Jawad Saab mentioned and explained ESG in a very beautiful manner, I'm so amazed with the work that you have shown, so inspired. It
Thank
was a
you.
holistic picture of an ESG. Being in Pakistan, it's not possible to access all this information, and I truly admire your effort in collecting this whole thing. So,
Appreciate it.
touching upon the practical aspects of ESG, so people, I hope that the participants also have this kind of an experience in which deciding on the ESG framework is the big challenge. And there are over 600 frameworks which are doing ESG reporting. So on the practically usage of the ESG for Jazz or any other telco or IT company, we have number of frameworks. So to skim the framework is one basic challenge. And the slide over here is mentioning the most popular ESG frameworks, just like GRI, SASB, TCFD. And then in align with are practices, are they aligned with the SDG goals? And then integration. So it's a whole kind of a thing. So I'm not sure like how many people know that Jazz is part of a Vion group. We are based in Amsterdam. Our parent company, it is based in Amsterdam. So we are more focused on using the ESG framework, which are more aligned to ESG taxonomy. In this regard, I would like to mention CSRD. That is one of the corporate reporting sustainability framework. So if I can share my slide, Shafak, is it possible?
Yes, Mehwish, just 1 minute. You can share your slide.
Okay, great. Okay, is it visible?
Yes, it is visible.
So,
You can switch to the presentation mode, Mehwish.
sorry?
You can
It's
switch to the presentation mode.
okay, right. Let me stop sharing that.
Slideshow, just go for the slideshow.
Okay, I'm not sure. I think I'm so lame with that. Okay.
Dr. Mehwish, you can share the presentation with me. Meanwhile, you can.
Okay, right. I just
It's
scrolled.
okay, Mehwish, you can start like this. No worries.
Okay, right. Okay, now is it visible?
Yes,
Okay, great.
yes.
So just to give you a little bit of flavor that what ESG reporting looks like for Jazz, as I mentioned, there are like over 600 reporting frameworks. So we are like into CSRD reporting, which is calculating the practical impacts of our business operations on the environment as well as on the society. And it's a kind of a performance evaluation criteria. So if we deep dive in, so it has ESRS requirements, which is further dividing the E, S, and G portion. For example, in E, we have 5 main components. One is about climate change, then pollution, water and marine environment, our impacts on the biodiversity and circular economy. For S, we have own workforce, workers in the value chain, affected communities by our operations, customers and consumers and end users, and then business conduct. So we have to channelize our work under these parameters because we have to disclose our work related to these 5 parameters. And then there is another interesting thing that there are like number of options within each category. If I give you just a glance of it, so can you view the Excel sheet over here?
We can see the PPT.
Okay, let me share that again. Okay.
Now
So
we can see the Excel
okay,
sheet.
it is just kind of you can say just for the information's sake, I can't disclose the whole information, but just to give you an idea that within the climate change, then it comes climate change mitigation, which is further divided into GHG emissions mitigation. It has climate change mitigation networks and number of options in terms of own workforce. It has number of subcategories. Similarly, for customers and users, business conduct, we have number of options. So it is not easy to just address, you can say the ESG reporting, but you have to identify the material topics which have direct impact on your business in terms of finances and your impact on the environment. So that is one thing which needs to be highlighted in the ESG forum. I would like to emphasize that once you practically start working on it, things become like they take a whole new journey, right? So then there was this net zero. I'm sure everyone is familiar of net zero commitment, which comes under again the climate change. So for Jazz, the ESG started 5 years back as a sustainability initiative, which was more on the social and governance. And then 2 years back, we started working on the environment part of ESG. And for that, we took a pledge in 2022 to become carbon neutral company by 2050. And for that, as also mentioned by Nauman, that we have scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. And this is not an easy thing to calculate the scope 2, you can say scope 3 emissions, because if I can just show you the description of scope 3 for a company, so it will be like quite overwhelming. Let me share the slide also. Okay, so you can see that scope emissions are divided in scope 1, which is direct emissions from the company facility as well as the company fleet. Scope 2 has an indirect emission, which is the significant contribution from a telecom company, being the consumption of electricity is an indirect impact. Scope 3 has over 15 categories, which has then divided into upstream and downstream. So you can say that from the upstream, it has everything to the services that we consume, being from where we procure the network equipments, what is the business travel, what is the employee commute, it all come under upstream emissions. Then downstream is the one where our products are being distributed. For example, our SIM cards, our services, our handsets, franchises, investments. So it is quite a huge kind of a journey to practically work on the ESG. And it's a learning as well. Being in a developing country, we have certain other challenges. For example, when we try to take the offsets of the mitigation actions, so you need to identify such kind of agencies or organizations who are working on the environmental practices that you want to do. So in addition to the GHG emissions, there is another thing that is about the calculation of your environmental footprint. And as I mentioned earlier, that e-waste is the biggest contribution of the waste hierarchy. Then we have paper waste, plastic waste. So these are the overview kind of a thing. So for now, regarding the initiatives of the being a private sector, which we have done, as mentioned by Nauman also, that we have carbon offsetting mechanisms in which, because we know we are producing some emissions. Now, how to reduce those emissions? So for the greenhouse gas mitigation, we have further subcategories. First is our offsetting, that is removing the GHG, then reduction, then avoided emissions. So in the past 2 years, we have done some projects around this subject, and it was based on the science-based targets and nature-based solutions. So science-based targets are those targets which are related to energy consumption or something technical. Nature-based solution is tapping into the natural capabilities of the nature to remove the carbon dioxide, main contributor in greenhouse gas emissions, from the atmosphere. So that is the direct significant like leading to plantation drives, because trees act as a lungs for the nature. So they remove carbon dioxide, which is a food for them. So that's a kind of a win-win situation for both parties. So again, then by adopting work from home for just 1 year, we approximately saved 1,300 tons of carbon dioxide, and we avoided these emissions. Then we started the circular economy and solid waste management project. Then we also reduced our waste by halving our SIM card, because if you have noticed that the SIM card is just a small portion and the rest is all waste. So we adopted this material efficiency approach in which we divided or reduced the card of the SIM card size, and it has a more value portion to it. So, but just by taking these initiatives, we were able to approximately offset or reduce or avoid 6,500 tons of CO2 in 2 years. Then there is another thing, because we are Jazz is a service provider, and we have some footprint in terms of selling the devices, mobile handsets, which are digit devices, like the in the past used to say buttons wala jo handset hota hai, okay? So it is just to make it more inclusive so that everyone can afford the handset. So that is one thing. So we are coming up with new initiatives in which we want to incorporate the circular economy of devices, because approximately 5 billion handsets, they are sitting in the drawers of every person. I think if I ask the participants, so at least you guys must be having at least one handset which is not usable, and it is sitting in the drawers very long time, right? So Jazz wants to like initiate such kind of a thing in which we encourage people to deposit their unused devices, so that by refurbishing or by refurbishing, you can say, or refixing that, we can just distribute those handsets to underprivileged population, and also focusing on the women as well. So this is kind of an initiative that we want to come up with. And in addition to that, we are also providing some digital service in terms of mobile financial services. Jazz Cash is the popular example of it. And in that way, because there are like hundreds and thousands of people who are not accessing the usual bank services. So we want to tap into their houses just by providing them mobile financial service, so that they will be more inclusive and they can run their businesses, and they can get the micro loans from the company as well. And in addition to that, we do some climate financing. For example, we contributed around 1 billion Pakistani rupees in the 2022 floods, and provide a number of services. And in addition to that, we also provide entertainment services like Jazz application Tamasha. So it has number of entertainment options. So it is like making it more inclusive. It comes under digital inclusion. And then we are also having some initiatives around sustainability, in which we are tapping into to cover up the youth leadership and providing them some options on you can say starting their own businesses at a smaller scale. So these are the few things that we have done so far. And in future, we are focusing on scope 3 emissions, and then setting science-based targets, and also creating a carbon credit market in Pakistan so that once we achieve our net zero targets, we can sell their surplus credits to the other companies so that they can offset their carbon footprint. So these are the things that we have done so far. And it was quite challenging. I have experienced those challenges. And I think digital technology and the IoT, ICT, they are the future of Pakistan and of the world also. So being connected is the main thing. And being a telco, we provide connectivity and we try to touch every corner of Pakistan in which we can just make it possible for everyone to at least access the basic life necessities, right? And regarding the digital technology in terms of green technology or kind of providing solution for climate change. So we have initiatives around early warning system. We have recently launched this app, which is about this thing. And then we provide subsidized SMS alerts on the disaster, natural disaster, whenever it hits. Then I think in addition to the examples provided by Jawwad Saab, I would also like to mention that there's a blockchain aspect which can just provide peer-to-peer trading of the household electricity that is generated by renewable energy. Then we can also use by tapping into digital technology, we can use virtual and augmented realities, VR or AR, to sensitize the government, to sensitize the policymakers on the impact of the climate change that we are experiencing every year, being in the top 10 countries most affected by climate change. In addition to that, we can also use the drones and robots to monitor the natural threats. For example, firefighting can be done by robots, right? And in addition to that, we can also use because my approach is more structured towards reducing the scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. So I mentioned that under the scope 1, we have emissions from the company fleet. So we can go for electric vehicles or hybrid vehicles. It has number of advantages. First, it will reduce emissions. Then it will reduce the problem of smog as well as noise pollution. Then we have other options, like, for example, if we use the digital technology for example, as an e-health service, so we can provide remote medical services to rural population who can't access the like main hospitals in case of emergencies or in case of natural disasters like floods or climate. So in addition to that, we can also provide connectivity in terms of like reducing the travel. For example, right now we are doing this webinar across the whole world by doing this conference call, right? So it's one very good example of utilizing the digital technology to access worldwide. And then we can provide security solutions. For example, by using drones, military operations can be done, or providing the smart cities options in which you can do the urban planning and management based upon some kind of algorithms in which you can just showcase this case. You can say the examples in which how the cities will be populated in future and what should be the planning mechanism to tackle that much of a population. And last but not least, we can provide the e-education for all the people who can't access the schools. They have some kind of an issue, whether it's a financial issue or some other kind of a constraint. So we can provide e-education and they can access the educational material while sitting at home. So these are the few examples that I wanted to highlight. And yeah, that is it from my side.
Thank you, Mehwish. Thank you so much. And I appreciate you touched E and S and G very, very clearly. So you're doing the environment part by emission scope 1 to 3 reductions. And then you are doing the social part whereby you are touching more and more lives. And the governance part where you are making it easier and transparent and making the processes transparent. And you are doing the communication part, which actually binds all these E and S and G together, which is the most important part. Like you cannot have drones flying without connectivity, or you cannot have any other application running without connectivity. So really appreciate. So now I'll move to this topic in our slides at slide number 20, which is resources and tools for ESG integration in IT. Mehwish touched it. She also gave you an idea. It's not very simple, but I would say start it and we can do it. Like the first thing is that just start it. So
Stop.
here we have 3 slides, which is ESG framework. You can quickly go through it while you are preparing at your home, when you are studying at home, and ESG reporting, which gives you some basic ideas of the sustainability reports, integrated reports, what other types of reports are there. And then you have the ESG tools that are available, the data provider analytics software, ESG screening tools, engagement platforms, and others. So you can quickly skim through that. Now we move to the last topic of today's webinar, which is success story, ESG implementation in the IT sector. So it would be, you must have heard of it, but we have some stats here. So, pardon?
Please, apologies. Before we go into this, if we can ask Nauman as well, because I know that he has also a pillar slide to share. If he can comment on this, that what resources or frameworks do you recommend IT companies should be using to integrate the ESG principles into their strategies? And even for the new companies as well, and even if they are using, how can they assess at what stage they are and how they can proceed from there?
Yeah, sure. Nauman,
Very
please.
good question. Very good question, Shafak. I've been since I'm listening to Jawwad Sab and Mehwish, so I don't want to duplicate any subject we already discussed. So some of the slides which I shared, I was just pivoting. So the subject of how to do the ESG in Pakistan, that's the my company has more exposure internationally. What CSRD's kind of solutions, those things are embedded in our solution. So I won't go into the subject of the technology first. I'll go into the subject of ESG first, and then how can this be implemented on the technology side. So in Pakistan, I've had about from north to south, I've had a lot of conferences and meetings, and I've heard a lot of people talk about the sustainability part of the things, how this goes, and which as an outsider of Pakistan, I figured out that frameworks which Mehwish mentioned, those are not very much into Pakistan's environmental stage. Jazz is a large corporate. So what about the smaller organizations, the medium organizations? And what about the government, how much they are implementing? It's not just the footprint. It's just like if I'm sitting at a home, when I built my home, how long it's going to cost the environment. Do we know this? This is called double materiality assessment. Do we know these things, how this works and how it doesn't work? Because, okay, I brought in the material and what's going to, how will be it, how long it will be wasted into, just like Mehwish delved into the age of products is the scope 1 and scope 3, downstream and upstream. So construction is Pakistan's major moneymaker, if we know, and the textile second one. This is what we think, yeah. The largest money is in Pakistan is in real estate sector. So let's debate that subject, how it works. Does anybody count that? The cost of emissions, like I live in Rawalpindi in Islamabad for my life, and 8 generations, and the city has gone from a very small town to a humongous city. So there is a huge carbon footprint of the construction industry. How does that get undone by the carbon credits and all those offsettings? So for me, I think the government and the private sector needs to be educated first on what is needed on this. And the other thing is how to sign this off, that if we made an ESG report, who does authenticate that report that this is valid? So these are one of the major points where people should know that there has to be a signing off of an international organization or somebody who knows this or who knows these frameworks. In Pakistan, there have to be a certain adaptation of frameworks because some people don't know what is a framework and then what is a standard. So all these things have to go into these debates because international jargon is quite complicated. Europe has another set of frameworks and America has another set of frameworks. So what solution we can come into? Pakistan has to decide that they have to choose something, and whatever the maximum standards do, we put it in our own standard and get it tested by somebody like KPMG, PwC, and they verify this. Okay, this solution is done. But how about the smaller industries? Who will verify their solutions? How do the people's lives change? How does this incentivize the carbon credits environment and the market? There has to be carbon credit environment. People from the ground level have to be educated about carbon credits. They can make money out of this. Do we have that economy yet? We don't have that. Taxonomy is one thing, but carbon credits economy has to be there in Pakistan so that people know that green environment is much better. I've been to a park recently. The trees were mentioning that I spent I give out 10 kilotons of oxygen every day, or I don't know, I forgot the exact number, but the whole year. That kind of initiative in Pakistan has to be done. People should be known that I've seen all the greenery. I'd not tell but even where I live right now, and Jawwad Sahab also lives, that was all the green portion of the country, and that's been taken out and that's been replaced. But what has been replaced is not the situation. The thing is, did we bring another green forest inside that standard? I've seen the temperatures rise in my whole lifetime. I'm 40 years old and I've seen the temperatures rise. Do we see this as a flagging thing? Is there a school level education to the children about this? I don't see any, because my children go to the school in Pakistan. So all these things have to be adapted in a smart way. Then the technology comes in. I'd go in with a picture just to delve into this. Can that be seen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we can.
So these are the ESG major criteria which are needed. This is quite complex. So if you give an organization and tell them to do this, trust me, on a culture of Pakistan's working culture, it would be very difficult.
Yeah.
So here the technology comes in.
Complex.
The technology will automatically, you just fill in the data, and technology will do on basis of all these requirements, all these things for you. So this is the automation which is needed in Pakistan, and that has to be brought in from the government of Pakistan, and then the larger corporations, they need to help the other organizations. This is how the social responsibility comes in from everybody. It's not just what the organizations are doing, and all the reporting has to be publicized. And that should be publicized by a standard making authority once again. So if somebody has done it, a bank has done it, because banks make decisions, which Jawwad said, or financial organizations do the investment decisions based on how much sustainable an organization is, the practices or their futuristic into these things. So all these things, I would go into details about what my company does, because we would have a separate session on that, I think a full down a couple of weeks. But internationally and locally, I've seen like the corporate. I was one of the companies was mentioned in probably Jawwad Saab's presentation. I don't want to name the company, but I was in a meeting from them. It's nothing about them, but the thing is, I found out that all the large size corporate board members or the CEOs of the companies, they just bring the ESG subject once in a year on their tables, maximum. So, and it's a far off debate. They're not serious yet, unless it hits us. So Pakistan has this dilemma that it's not hit us directly, so we should not be worried about it. So obviously that has to change on the ground level, because Pakistan is getting affected by the climate. So if somebody else is not changing internationally for us, we have to change ourselves. So this is the main theme of this. See the stuff, like if I tell them to make reports on these, and a ESG department has to do and ask reports from all these departments and all these people, which is mentioned here, it's a quite complicated job. So, but the systems can be put in place, and the report owners can be created. A system can be created and given an SOP, and then this can be like extracted. But how? The willpower has to come there. So this is it from my side. I think Jawwad Saab has done a brilliant job, and
thank you.
This is more than I was expecting, and a lot of learning from me as well. And on the IT and just last but not the least, IT and the telco sector. Obviously, Pakistan has, if Mehwish would know, that more than 50,000 just the offices and the front face offices of telco in Pakistan. I'm sure I know if you include, if I know Telenor, Youthon and PTCL combined, because they run under the same umbrella. So I know they are more than 35,000 sites, and they are one of the largest landowners in Pakistan. Most people don't know this as well. So they are the top two. So I don't want to name the first one. So these are the numbers which obviously you do the research, the data has to come in, people have to be educated, how this can be done, how can these be automated. It has to start from the lower and the top end, both, and then, we go down into the sandwiching.
Exactly on this, there is a question from Aftab Alam for Mehwish as well, that what the transitions toward a new state require shift of the mindset and the behavior, which is very challenging. And what capacity building strategies Jazz undertook for mindset behavior change of the staff? This is exactly what Nauman you were saying. And what challenges faced and the resources that are needed for this change, behavior change. If Mehwish, you can comment on this.
Yeah, sure. So excellent question, Aftab. I truly admire that because we are so fortunate being in jazz. People are quite aware. They come from like they have like very great profiles, and at least they are quite sensitive about the topics that are related to ESG. And in that case, we try to, because in the past 2 years, we have done a number of exercises in terms of hosting some awareness sessions for the employees, taking them on the plantation drives, going for the beach cleaning activities, just to highlight the importance of the environment and other components as well. So of course, I think intent is needed, first step. But I also like agree with Noman that to convince the higher management, you need to make ESG a business case. Okay, you have to highlight that, okay, even though it is affecting environment, but it is also affecting our business. For example, in case of jazz, if some natural disaster like flood hits us, so our infrastructure will be out of service, which is a direct loss of the business. So we have to just you can say restructure this whole thing to convince the higher management to make it a business case. But of course, we are fortunate that we have a very good management. Our CEO, he's very motivational person, and he actively works on the international trends because right now, Pakistan, the ESG is becoming a new hot topic in Pakistan, but we have been working on this subject for past couple of years. So I think starting from the awareness, then readiness, and then preparation. But I want to highlight that in terms of awareness, it's an easy job. You can change the behavior of the employees. For example, tell them to segregate the waste into organic and recyclable waste at the office level, right? But when it comes to managing these kind of a waste, because after the struggle of 2 years, we hired the solid waste management company who can actually take our waste and segregate that into recyclable and organic waste. And then now they are practicing the composting of the organic waste by making organic fertilizers and recycling the plastic bottles and so on, whatever is generated on the daily basis. So intent is there, awareness is good, but we need a formal structure to further process this whole thing to make it more circular. Because our aim is, for example, when it comes to the waste management, our aim is to sending zero waste to landfill, right? Which means we have to manage this waste in some way or another so that we can avoid its dumping in the landfill and open burning later on, because this is what happens to a waste. So we need a whole structured approach which comes from the government. Then being a corporate or the private sector, we can pitch in and make it more effective and more innovative in coming future, making more digital solutions. For example, we designed this concept on formalizing the waste sector of Pakistan, in which people can download the app and then they can identify the recycling hotspots nearby, and they can deposit, for example, plastic bottles or any kind of a device which is left over in their drawer. And then it is picked up by the third party, which is a recycling company. But it's a whole thing. It needs huge investment. So just awareness is just the first step. It's a baby step. We need more giant steps, because in terms of technology, Pakistan is lacking on technology, right? There are like very limited. In fact, in terms of landfill, we just have 4 to 5 landfills in whole Pakistan, and we generate million tons of solid waste every day, right? So infrastructure capacity building of our government, it's also very important. So it's kind of a nexus or integrated approach to manage this ESG at Pakistan level. It is very much needed because we don't have so many options. So yeah, I think
just like I don't know how the numbers of climate change are considered in Pakistan, because I've seen international reports like India is quite bigger. UAE is one of the highest carbon emitters of the world on their own population size. They are actually the highest because of their oil production and living standards. You know, they have a lot of constructions and all those things. But we have 240 million people in Pakistan. They must be having some carbon footprint. And we have a lot of plastic waste. We use a lot of shopping bags. There is a potential to change, but we don't want to use to buy milk. I've just seen people still use shopping bags to buy milk from shops in corporate places where, I mean, the marketplaces. And these all things come in a longer version, you know, it accumulates. And we are becoming a large size population. And from a small land, we have a very huge population issue as well. So if people are not educated on this is eventually going to be, we are going to be into a negative environmental side, because every year it's going to hit us. Malaysia and Pakistan have every year floods. So I've seen a lot of reports on Malaysia, and I've had discussions with some people there. Every year their economy is 4 to 5% damaged. Overall economy is 4 to 5% damaged every year. In Malaysia as well, they still fight it, but because their systems are very strong. But for us, if some flood comes in a certain area of a population where it is not very strong, it stays there for maybe 3-4 years. And how do we mitigate that? So some of the practices, I've had a research video I've seen. I think most of the people must have seen this. The British system, which they made the canals. When I was growing up, people said that this system is pretty good, the water irrigation system. Now we found out it's like veins. When the water goes in from smaller tributaries to large, it becomes a bigger flood. It doesn't flow back. So there is a huge fault in that system. So it's just not one, but we have to, because northern areas we are doing so much deforestation, and then the tourism industry gets affected, and they start thinking about, oh, we need to change. But they build their hotels right next to the water. So all those things have to be done. Risk assessments have to be done. It's not just money-making tool, because eventually, if you don't think long-term, it's going to affect us all. So it's not just what we are doing, it's about what we're doing for our children's future as well. That's it from my side. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a question, but Shafaq, let's complete the success story. So now let me dwell on it a little. The success stories part first. Well, the last part, I'll be explaining the last part. The first part was very aptly explained by Mehwish, where she explained what they are doing for carbon emissions. And for like the first time I started thinking, like, we are so wasteful. We are actually ourselves are creating such a lot of plastic waste and other things. So right now I'm looking around and trying to find whatever I have around me is like a waste and finally become a waste. So that is a great success story. If you bring down the fleet, you do the preventive maintenance in such a manner that the field teams move less and less of the fuel is used. And you do the fueling of the sites in such a way, the BTS sites, where you take the diesel generators where they are installed, where you take the fuel, such that at the right time when it is required, it goes there. So all of that is the IoT and the related stuff. And we do the AE, Agri and other part, where the drones are used for spraying, where the first things are assessed. For example, the insects are assessed and only controlled pesticides are used. So that is something that Jazz is supporting and Mehwish explained. And the other part of the success story that I see right now here is what Nauman explained, is that ESG and implementing ESG is quite complex. And this is what I learned when I started studying it. Yeah, but there are tools and then there are people. So that is a great success story, that if we start, then there are software tools. You just fill in the information and those will make your life much easier. So for the IT companies and whoever there, and if we have representatives as guests here, who are the IT companies, the first step should start. Every journey starts with the first few steps. So let's start the journey. Let's putting in things, and then there are people, and then there are tools, and then there is support available, so we can start our journey of the ESG compliances. So our story is like, this is the story of my company, and I'll go through it, and then I'll invite Nauman to explain all the terms that I have just put there, but I don't know, and he knows it, and he'll explain it, right? So I need your help, Nauman, please. So
Just the screen is not shared, so please, if somebody can do that.
Yeah, Shafaq, if you could share the slide. Let's go to slide number 24. And then we'll quickly skip to 26. Yeah, thank you. So it's ESG implementation in the IT sector. This is topic. Next slide, please. So here, I'll skim it quickly because already Nauman and Mehwish, they explained a lot of the challenges that we face and how the climate is impacting. We are the Mehwish, what? The 10th
Yeah,
topmost, among the 10th topmost countries impacted
at the
by,
moment. Yeah.
yeah. So that is quite a challenge. So this slide is about that.
We are
Next.
in the eye of the hurricane.
Storm. Oh,
I
So-
mean, this is
Want
the
to add here?
we always climate disasters happen in Pakistan. This is where we have to change. Yeah.
Yeah, just want to add here, being the lowest emitting country, but receiving the huge impact.
yeah.
There is this physics phenomena of diffusion. Everyone is aware of that.
Yeah.
That high to low concentration things happen.
Yeah.
This is exactly happening with us. Emitters are big countries and they are emitting a lot. And then we are at the downstream, and that is why we are receiving the balance amount of
Oh.
GHG as in the impacts leading to that thing that is happening here.
Everything is extreme in Pakistan. People have, I don't know, noticed or no, but the weather in Pakistan is getting extreme. Even the summer is extreme.
Yeah.
Even the autumn is extreme. Even the spring is extreme.
Yeah.
And the winter is also extreme. So
Yes, and
this never used to happen before.
yeah, and
So this
seasons
means
are also
that it,
shifting. Yeah.
yeah, so extreme heat means more evaporation. That means more precipitation, more rain, and then we'll
Right.
have rains like the last time. It said that there was a continuous rain of 10 days, which actually started the devastation that happened in 4 years back in the flood.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the green initiative that we started at USF, so I'm the planning director at USF, and that was in 2009. And believe me, it did not start for the purpose of climate. Actually, it started from the very first purpose: save on money, and we have no electricity. So the base problem that we right now are talking about, the challenge that it solves, is the climate part. 10 years back when we started it, it was because we had no money. The telcos were sort of finding it very difficult to pay electricity bills and fuel bills. So we had to go solar. So a word about my company. I'm the planning director at USF. It's a company set up by the government under Section 42. So it's an autonomous body. And the purpose is to provide telecommunication services to the underserved and unserved areas. So we work with our partners, which are Jazz, all these telecom companies, Jazz, Zong, Telenor, Ufone, and then PDCL, Wateen, Neatel, and the telcos, Dancom. They are our partners. And we extend telecom networks to areas, and we have projects all over Pakistan. And like in Balochistan, 60% of the network, mobile broadband network, the LTE or 4G network that we have, is funded by USF. We call it the subsidy. So we subsidize the network there. So it's a major component there. About 6,000 kilometers of optical fiber is laid in Balochistan, and that is also the USF, most of it in Balochistan, and that is also the USF initiative. And right now we are doing sort of Neatel type of optical fiber access network, and that is also in the rural areas. So we are looking forward for a multimedia, integrated multimedia services. So we'll talk about that sometimes later. So the basic problem was that USF projects and programs, if you look at it from the holistic approach, we are working for the sustainable development part by contributing towards health and well-being, which is the connectivity part. Like on top of that, e-services like e-medicine, e-health, that could start. And then we enhance access to quality education. Right now, our remote networks, they are providing books online and other stuff, which is being supported by Jazz and all our partners, and promoting gender equality, because we are not prejudiced against any gender. The mobile phone and the internet goes everywhere. So this is the SDG goal 5, and all of that is the social part. So this is one part of the journey that we had, and it meets SDG goals as well as the social part of the ESG. And under the mandate, next slide, please. So we go to the values now. So in about 10 years back, we started this concept of all sites to use solar as a primary source of energy. And all our projects would have solar to run the BTSs. BTSs are those tall towers that you see around that have some antenna equipment on top of it, and they usually have a generator at the base of it. So these sites, we started that the sites that USF will fund will have solar as the primary source of energy, and that means that energy will be stored in the batteries. So when the sun is out, the same energy will be used to provide power to the system. So it will run 24/7 on solar power, except in case of emergency, whereby either commercial or the generators will be used. So 100% of our new sites use solar energy. That is a total of 93% of the sites, because we have some sites that are sort of upgrade BTS sites as well. So we can say roughly out of the total sites, 3,600 sites belong to USF, and 93% of them have solar as a primary source of energy providing source. So the number comes out to be 2,589 sites have solar. And they produce, the capacity of the solars installed there when seen together is 19.5 megawatts. So from that, we will try to calculate what is the carbon footprint and how much is the reduction in that. So the graph here, I'll quickly go through it. Just on the left side is the number of sites in a project. So along the x-axis are different projects. You can see they cover all of the remote areas like Chitral, Jhang, and this is not Jhang city. It is the suburbs, the rural areas of Jhang, then rural areas of Shangla. Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I forgot to request slide. Next slide. Shangla, and then Miawali and Khyber. All of these are the rural areas of these cities, these districts. On the left side, we see there are the number of sites, or BTSs we call them. Let's call them the towers for ease of understanding. So these are the number of towers per site, per project. On the right side is the kilowatts. So if we read the comma as a decimal point, so it is about like 1.4 megawatts, 1.2 megawatts. So like if you look at Chitral and Jhang, here it goes about like 1.4 megawatts of all of the sites that are there, about 180 to 200 sites there. Next slide, please. So a single site is about 6,000 to 10,000 watts, 6 kVA to 10 kVA. Normally the modern sites are use much less energy, but this is a rough value that is there. And then the number of, we look at it as all of the sites together appear like one big plant, one big power generation unit. So here we have this a similar presentation. So you can see on the right side that how big the solar panels are, you see on the right side, and then below it are the battery banks. So these are the modern battery banks that we use, quite efficient. They have a 10 to 12 years of life. And this is maybe a site, I believe it's either Telenor or Jazz. And on the left side, you have the same graphs that I mentioned earlier. So you see that project-wise number of sites and electrical power produced, then project-wise number of sites and electrical power produced. So it's a different representation of the same slides. Next slide, please, Shafat. So here are the numbers. When we sum, well, if you go to the graph, you see that the green energy produced in terms of units, a unit of electricity in Pakistan and everywhere is kilowatt hour, which is like 1,000 watts used for 1 hour is equal to 1 unit of electricity. So here we see that I have added all the numbers. So you see that in Chitral, we have about like 1 million or 1,000 units per year of electricity and others. So when we add them together, it comes out to be approximately 33 million kilowatt hours. So in a year, our green systems, they do not consume or they consume renewable energy equal to 33 million units of electricity. 33 million units of electricity at about rupees 50 per unit comes out to be a high value, right? This saves about 170 kilotons of carbon emissions, and this is equivalent to about 6 million trees planted annually. So these are the annual numbers. Now I will request, based on this slide, Nauman to please explain these numbers or the concepts behind it and what else is being saved if we are not using diesel as a source of energy, or if we are not using the conventional thermal or hydroelectricity, a mix of thermal and electricity, and if we are using alternate power, so what are the other impacts on environment, and what are the other directions in which a professional like Nauman would think about? Yeah, please, Nauman.
Yeah, this here, look, I'd go into 1 kiloton of
Apologies to cut, but you might have only few minutes because
Sure,
we
sure.
are
I'm just 1
crossing
minute.
the
I'll
90
explain.
minutes.
I'll
Yes,
explain
please.
Yeah,
Yes, please.
the matrix of this in one thing is that 1 kiloton of carbon dioxide is almost 9 meters in a sphere. So 9 meters in a sphere. So this is huge on terms of this. So this 6 million trees, and just go with one more number. If everybody in this world, the climate change is that bad that if everybody in this world plants trees every day, 18 trees, one person, 8 billion people, still it's not going to mitigate so we are that much behind in. So we need to be we need to be doing it from now. The governments have to do it because it's not going to be done by the people because it's not their job. So it has to be understood that environment has to be protected. Mangroves have to be protected. Marine life has to be protected. All these things come together because they mitigate the climate effect much quicker. It's not just the trees. The marine life is very important to this. Coral reefs, all these things are very much related to all these things. So once we save our coral life, marine life, mountain life, the forests in the north, just not Pakistan, but everybody in the world, they have their own capacity to understand. We don't build on a lot of societies. We go into vertical much if we want to give up a little bit of lifestyle. We should prefer vertical living standards versus, parallel living. So these things, all have to change, and obviously this can be replaced. Pakistan, we again, just last thing, we think that it's not our carbon footprint which is affecting us. I have a disagreement on this, that it is. What we are doing is somehow is also part of it, because we have built huge cities. Pakistan, when I grew up, 30% or less than 30%, I was small, when I was younger, 30% people used to live in the cities, less maybe. But I think now it's more than 50% of the rural population. Yeah, urbanization. So we need to think deep into these things. Thank you very much.
Just want to add into a conversation.
Mehwish? Yeah, and I have one request as well. Yeah, you please, you continue with the comment, and while continuing with that, please answer one question that is there for you.
Okay, right.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
please.
So for Imran's question regarding the capacity building, in addition to capacity building, adaptation is another aspect. But of course, adaptation requires a lot of finances. For example, if we talk about elevating our infrastructure, because it is directly linked to telco industry. So for that, we have to spend a lot of, you can say, amount or finances. First thing is to get the approval to just adapt that infrastructure to the new environment or the new climate. That is another thing. So instead of doing that, the wise approach is just to do the pre-assessment of the site. Okay, if this site is vulnerable to climate change in terms of heat, in terms of floods, which is impacting the infrastructure. So pre-planning is the thing. And then in that context, you can adapt the infrastructure by elevating the infrastructure. For example, choosing some point which is more elevated as compared to the ground level. That is one thing that you can adapt the infrastructure. And in adaptation also comes like Jawwad sir mentioned regarding the battery. So I just want to add in that we use two types of batteries. Previously, these were lead acid batteries, which have a life of 3 to 5 years. Now we are going to lithium-ion batteries, which have a life of 10 to 15 years, right? So these are the adaptation practices in terms of opting for more efficient, long-lasting infrastructure. That is another thing, that how we can adapt to climate change and make it more resilient to climate change. And regarding the carbon capture and storage, I want to add this, that Fawad Nauman mentioned that plantation is one thing, and it will, for example, 18 trees per person throughout the world is required to mitigate the impacts of climate change, which is kind of a slow process. We know that it's more a plantation itself is a seasonal kind of a thing. Sometimes they are active, sometimes they are not. For example, if their leaves are not there, so though they won't be able to capture the carbon dioxide for photosynthesis process. So the direct approach is to pinpoint the source emissions from where the emission is actually happening. For example, in terms of electricity production units, you can go there and ask them to adopt the strategy which can use carbon capturing and then storage so that it won't be there in the atmosphere. So you don't have to plant so many trees to capture that on lose greenhouse gas emissions, right? So mitigation is required at the source. This is what I want to just add in this conversation. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, Shafat, please. Yeah, Shafat, please. Now it's your turn. We only
Yes,
have
thank
got a
you.
thank you.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jawad sir. Thank you so much. Thank you,
You're
Nauman
welcome.
and Mehwish.
Great
I
teamwork.
would be, yes, I would be asking Asad if he is there with us, if he can give us the closing remarks, then we will be closing afterwards. Over to you, Asad.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was a very good interactive session and lot of best practices have been shared. My few points regarding some of the best practices, as Jawad Saab just mentioned about some best practices about USF, and basically again the push which they were given in the initial phases towards solarization was, again, it all started with the cabinet committee on energy decision that all the solar BTS towers have to be converted on solar. And at that time, solar was not that much cheap what we are looking at today. And I know that from the ministry platform, I've been convening some meetings, technically noting down those things as well, where USF and Naveed Saab from UFON and other people used to come and sit. We used to deliberate on all things. And then they were the pioneers, and they started off these things and all those best practices. ESG, when we talk about ESG in IT and telecom sector, definitely all three have to be balanced. In Pakistan, most of the thrust has been on environmental side, but social and governance side. For example, for this seminar or webinar, we have outreach to many Pakistan Software Export Board member IT and Pasha, new chairman, and so they were having some conferences and things like that. But they are all well aware about this session as well, and somehow they couldn't manage to come and join this session. But for example, in terms of IT, let us take it we can go for some sort of pledges as well. Although from this platform, we can ask all the IT and telecom related companies to make their websites in such a way that they also cater for the special persons. Like if you go to PITB website, Pakistan Information Technology Board website, they have a small logo of persons which cannot see, but they have their voice command activated and things like that. These provisions were there, so it gave me a sense of the social side, or somehow the coming from the governance side, these things are being tackled. And similarly, child care centers and so many things which Mehwish have reflected in her presentation, that they have been there. So the best, so ESG is basically what it is doing. Its reporting is basically compiling up all best practices whatsoever the organizations have. But again, at the end of the day, it's the gun. It's not the gun; it's the man behind the gun. So you need proper practitioners, proper people, certified people to carry out each and every standard, and then on the basis of those standards, generate the reports and feed them into the softwares and systems which are there, even AI based or other systems. So I think it's a sort of machine and man integration is very much necessary at every stage. And our this today's session has in this today's session we have shed light on all these things. And I think we'll be having further interaction with all the stakeholders down the line. And specifically another case study came into my mind, which I was asked by Zong to come up into one of their offices and carry out their lux assessments on the working desks of their people, so that they don't feel So this is something, again, they were thinking from not only from energy perspective, scope 1 perspective, they were thinking from international compliance, what lux levels should be there on their work desks. So these best practices have been there, part of the strategies of the departments. But now the point is like collecting them and bringing them in one format, and that is what ESG is there for. So good to have all of you stakeholders in pipeline, and over to Shafak and everyone, and let's stay connected. And for those which we haven't responded, like Aftab Alam Saab, he's also perfection technology specialist. So we'll address your queries. If you can send it to through email, so we can definitely deliberate on those things as well later on.
Perfect.
Over
Thank you
to
so
you.
much, Asad. Yes, thank you so much, Asad. Apologies, Aftab sir. We will address your query, but by email, just like Asad said, because we are very much overdue right now. It's 10:45. So by this, we will be concluding this session. Thank you so much,
Thank you so
Jawad sir.
much.
Again, thank you so much,
Yeah, thank you
Dr.
to the whole team, to all the participants. Yeah, it was a great
Yes,
teamwork.
to
I
all the
was supported
participants.
by Nauman, you in the first place, then everyone, and I'm thankful to Asad for his such kind and generous remarks. I appreciate. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Take care, all.
Thank you, Mehwish. Thank you,
Thank you,
Goodbye.
everyone.
Good
Thank you.
night.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
Thank
you.
you, Jawad sir. Thank you, Mehwish.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Asad and Shafak and Saima.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Nauman.
Nauman.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you,
I
everybody.
could have offered you coffee peenie, so are most welcome. You can visit my home.
I'm running on water basically.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Back to this. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank
All right.
you.
See ya when we see you the next time. Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Nauman. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.